Right now, I am in the town of St. Mary-Glisse in Normandy. And for people who take interest in the U.S. airborne operations in the Battle of Normandy, St. Mary-Glisse is kind of the central hub for all things airborne. And, also for people who take an interest in the history of World War II, for a lot of people, their gateway went through the book and series Band of Brothers. So today, we thought that we would take a little bit of time to go around to some of the sites where some of the members from Easy Company of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment landed on D-Day, and maybe look at a few other sites as well. For the moment, we've moved just out to the outskirts of St. Mary-Glisse, and we're in a field. As I mentioned, we're going to be looking at some of the spots where some of the members from Easy Company of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment landed on D-Day. We might as well start off with the one that people are most familiar with. Right here in this field, probably towards the edge, around that hedge over there, this is the approximate location where Dick Winters landed. Now, on the 6th of June, as it is well known, there was a serious issue with misdrops over Normandy, and the guys from the 101st were no exception. So Dick Winters and a lot of the Easy Company guys ended up being dropped way off course. So Dick Winters touches down in this field somewhere, and when he hits the ground, well, off in the distance, right over here, there's a road junction, and the Germans had a gun there that was firing. So he decides that it might be a good idea to go the other way. Of course, he lands without his weapons, had lost his leg bag, and he is going to start making his way into St. Mary-Glisse. And we have an artifact that we've brought here today that is connected with Dick Winters and the landing here at this spot.
I'm standing in a field on the edge of St. Mary-Glisse in Normandy, France. And I'm standing in this field because right behind where I'm standing is the approximate location of where Major Dick Winters of the famous Band of Brothers in the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne, landed on D-Day. And I'm holding a picture and some insignia from Lieutenant William Salmons, who was in the 9th Army Air Force 439th Troop Carrier Group. He was the pilot of Chuck number 67, which was the actual plane that carried Dick Winters into Normandy. And so this is his pilot wings and his patches and insignia from his uniform. And I wanted to bring them back here today. We talk a lot about Dick Winters, and we have his items at the Gettysburg Museum of History, and we brought many of his items out to the battlefield. But today I wanted to bring Lieutenant Salmon's insignia out here and talk a little bit about him and what happened on June 6, 1944.
All right, we've moved back into town, and let me try and orient you as to where we are. So just to the west, which is right back here, this is the field where we just were, where Winters landed. The church in St. Mary-Glisse, you can actually see the top of it right there. So after Winters lands and kind of gets his bearings, he makes his way into the edge of town and would have popped in right around in this area somewhere. And very close by was the landing site of Carwood-Lipton. So the building that we are standing in front of right now is currently serving as the City Hall for St. Mary Église. During the occupation, well, the German Kommandantur would have been here. And before I go any further, I do need to give credit where credit is due. We were with Paul Woodage from World War II TV here a few weeks ago, and he's the one who has done a lot of the heavy lifting and has all of the experience, and showed us a lot of these sites. So anyway, Winters is going to be popping up right in there somewhere. And Carwood-Lipton, we're going to walk back here. Now, you have to keep in mind that the ground here looks a little bit different than it did in 1944. So you see this parking lot out here. That was not a parking lot at the time. That would have just been a regular field. And Carwood-Lipton is going to come down right over here, kind of in a flower bed. So in 1944, there was a stone wall that would have went right across here. And Carwood-Lipton, look at it, we almost have an X marks the spot. Lipton is going to land like right in here. So the stone wall would have went out here and then come right out here. And this is pretty much the spot where Lipton touches down on French soil. Back out front now, when Carwood-Lipton hits the ground, he's suffering from some night blindness. He was the jump master, and there'd been, flares going up and gunfire, and there was a fire in St. Mary Église. So he hits the ground again right over there, and when he lands, he can't see anything, but he starts moving anyway. And in 1944, there would not have been a gap here in this stone wall. The stone wall would have continued on around. So he gets to this point and crosses over, and I mean, it's darker than a stack of black cats out here on June 6th. So he's making his way up this road, and then he decides to turn around, and he runs into a sign, and using his fingers, he feels out the lettering on the sign. And that's how he finds out that he is in St. Mary Église, and shortly after links up with Winters and some of the other members from Easy Company.
We are a few hundred yards from the church at St. Mary Église, and we came out here because this is another area that we know a member of Easy Company landed on June 6, 1944, and that was Earl One Lung McClung. And he landed on top of this structure right here, and his parachute was caught on that steeple looking thing. And as he landed, he noticed some Germans coming at him, and he got hung up in his cords somewhat, but he was able to kill that German with an edged weapon right before they got to him.
We've moved down the road a couple hundred yards from where Carwood-Lipton touched down. As a matter of fact, it was just right back here. And this is the approximate area where Bull Randleman hits French soil. And he said that when he landed, he gets out of his parachute harness and gets his weapon and ammunition together. And he was starting to walk down this hedgerow, and all of a sudden this German comes from around the hedgerow, and they're like face to face. and it's kind of a split-second decision on who's going to get it first. And Bull said that he was able to get this German before the German got him. Bull Randleman, from that point on, like, nobody sees him for days. It's almost like towards Carentan where Bull shows up again. And when they ask what he's been doing, he's like, well, basically been out, killing Germans. But as for Winters and Lipton and the rest, they got together and started heading out towards Sainte Marie du Mont. We've left St. Mary-Église, and we're making our way along the approximate route that Dick Winters and the other men who had landed in the St. Mary-Église area were making as they were heading towards the area around Sainte Marie du Mont. Now, there was a bit of a hodgepodge of guys who had found each other and were all kind of moving in the same direction. And one of the complaints that Dick Winters had about the TV show is he said that it made it look like they were just lost and had no idea where they were going, when in fact they knew exactly where they were going.
I'm holding Major Dick Winters' Normandy map, and as we know, he lost his equipment on D-Day from the opening shock of his parachute, and his maps and most of his equipment were lost, and he would have had a similar map to this in his musette bag, but it was gone. So during the night of D-Day, he relied on a silk evasion map that he had sewn into his trousers. So he would have obtained this map a day or two after D-Day, and I like it because you can tell that it's combat used, it's dirty, it has the original fold lines, and it also has a more detailed area map on the other side. And the series portrayed him as being lost, and that was one of his big complaints. Winters was never lost, and he was a real map guy, and he really prided himself on knowing exactly where he was, and he always did.
So this direction right here that we are facing is back in the direction of St. Mary-Église. So Dick Winters and the other members of his party and different paratroopers that had been collected along the way, well, they are advancing in this direction right here. And as they are making their way toward their objective, well, they get to this T-junction. And right around this T-junction, there's a part in the series that depicts this ambush on some Germans that are transporting supplies via horse and wagon. Well, that happened right here. As a matter of fact, they got to this T-junction, and that horse and wagon were coming from right up here. Now, where the series and where real life kind of part ways is the series shows Bill Garnier getting out front and Dick Winters being out front, and Garnier like mowing down all of these German troopers. Garnier and Winters were more toward the back of the column. At this point, Winters still didn't have his firearm, and it was more the guys at the front who laid down the ambush right here at this T-junction. There are a lot of places where you can go where there are memorials and monuments and things that are dedicated to the members of Easy Company. But it's really neat to me to get out into some of these other places and get like around these hedgerows and retrace some of these steps that we're all so familiar with from the book and the series. Anyway, Winters and Garnier and all of these other guys would have made their way along this road right here as the night continued on, and it was this road that would eventually lead them to Brecourt Manor.